All right, so welcome back. We're going to now look at some of our other brain and cerebral structures. We'll look at some of the brainstem, and then we will move on from there. So if we look here at our left brain here, this left image here, we can see a number of things. All right, so if you look on the inside of the brain, again, this is equivalent to this region of the brain here of our human brain. Right, so this is kind of where we're looking. There are a number of things, right, that we're going to look at. And so we already kind of looked at our cerebral cortex. We already looked at some of the white gray matter. We already looked at some of the lobes. Now, associated here and kind of nearby our ventricle. So again, recall, which ventricle is this? This region here where my pointer is. Hopefully you can answer that. Remember, that is our lateral ventricle. You have this region, this kind of white matter region here. You can see where my pointer is. All of this white matter tissue that you see kind of running all through here, right? All this. This is something called the corpus callosum, right? The corpus callosum, all this white matter here. And what this essentially is this large connecting white matter structure that connects one cerebral hemisphere, right? So in this case, the right, to the left. So it is a physical connection between one hemisphere on one side and the hemisphere on the other, right? And so this is something called our corpus callosum, right? If we move down now, if we move just inferior to that, so here's our corpus callosum, we move down to this region here, this is our thalamus, right? This is our thalamus, this kind of circular region that you see here. This is our thalamus. The equivalent to that on our human brain is this approximate region right in here, right? This is our thalamus, okay? The thalamus is largely it's a relay station, so it's where most sensory signals, so sensory information coming from the periphery, so touch, pain, temperature, vision, auditory information, pretty much every sensation except for smell, so olfaction, passes through the thalamus. It may synapse here and then extend up into some other higher brain structure, so maybe the cortex, for example. If you're here and you move just below the thalamus, right? So here's our thalamus. If you move below the thalamus, you move to something called the hypothalamus, right? And that should make sense, right? It's below the thalamus. So the thalamus, hypothalamus. Hypothalamus, and again, on our human brain, that region would be this general region kind of all in here. So here's our thalamus. Below it, all this is our hypothalamus. Hypothalamus is largely involved with lots of autonomic functions. Control of visceral structures, so think internal organs. So it also controls things like hunger, thirst, appetite. Our internal body temperature is regulated by the hypothalamus. And it's also an important endocrine structure as well. So it releases and produces various hormones that will influence other structures, so maybe like the pituitary gland, and then other more distant areas in the body, right? So again, that is our hypothalamus, this approximate region here. You'll notice this little circular structure right here. This is a section through our optic nerve, or what's called our optic chiasm, right? And so if we look here on this brain here, you see this kind of structure right here, this kind of X-shaped structure. It would be kind of running like this, and there'd be another one running like this. This is approximately where this section is made. So cut through right here is where we have this structure right here, right? So this is associated with our optic nerve, okay? Okay, if we continue looking, we can continue down into our brainstem, right? And so we have what's called our midbrain, our pons, our medulla, and then our spinal cord down here, right? And so you can see the same thing if we look on an intact brain. This approximate region here, the level, this is approximately the midbrain, okay, right here. This is our pons, this is our medulla, and this is our spinal cord down here, right? So midbrain, pons, medulla, and spinal cord, right? Now, if we focus here on our midbrain for a second, and we're gonna come back to this ventral surface of the brain in just a little bit, but if we focus on this midbrain, but we turn the brain over, right? So we turn the brain over, and we pull our, remember what is this structure? This is our cerebellum, right? We pull our cerebellum away from our occipital lobes, right? So here's our two occipital lobes, and here's our cerebellum. We can see this kind of superior part of the midbrain, and this is called the tectum, right? Tectum is Latin for roof. Okay, so this is the roof of our midbrain, right? So again, this is our midbrain, right? If we just follow it over, here's our tectum, right? Now you'll notice, if you can kind of see here, there are 4 little bumps. Okay, there are 4 little bumps that we can see here. So I'll try to point these out to you. So if we look here, you have one here, top left, top right, bottom left. So these 4 bumps, collectively, these 4 bumps are called the corpora quadrigimina, right? Corpora quadrigimina. Corpora refers to corpse, which means body, okay? So think like if you find a corpse in the forest, you found a dead body. Hopefully you don't. So corpora. Quad, so quadrigimina. Quad means 4. And then gimina is referring to Gemini, which means twin. So the whole name, corpora quadrigimina, means 4-bodied twin, okay? So you can see the 4 bodies, these 4 bumps, and I'll tell you the names of these in a second. And they're twins because you have 2 on the left, 2 on the right, 2 on the top, 2 on the bottom, right? So corpora quadrigimina. Now, each one of these bumps, okay, each one of these bumps is called a colliculus, okay? A colliculus, or colliculi, plural, okay? So these 2 on the top are called superior colliculi, right? These 2 on the bottom are called inferior colliculi, right? So 2 superior colliculi, 2 inferior colliculi, collectively corpora quadrigimina, right? So what these are, is these are centers in the brain. These are structures in the brain that help us coordinate movements in response to different types of stimuli, right? So in particular, these 2 top colliculi, these 2 superior colliculi, are primarily involved with orienting us to to visual stimuli, okay? To visual stimuli, right? These 2 up here. So take, for example, you are walking across the street, right? You're walking across the street, and maybe you didn't have the right-of-way, right? Well, maybe pedestrians always have the right-of-way, but maybe the walk sign didn't say walk and you just chose to walk anyways, right? And there's a car coming, okay? But you didn't see it. Maybe you have your AirPods in and you're listening to music, I don't know. And you see out of the corner of your eye this car zooming towards you at a high rate of speed, right? What are you gonna do whenever you begin to see that car, right? You're gonna see it out of the corner of your eye, and just reflexively, you're probably going to turn. You're probably gonna turn towards it. Your head and neck are gonna turn, so you're gonna contract maybe, your sternocleidomastoid or something, and your head is gonna turn. You're gonna contract some of the extraocular muscles on your attached to your eye to help shift your gaze toward the car, right? And then the car's gonna hit you because you didn't pay attention to it, right? But the idea here is that you are orienting your body, your head, your neck, your eyes, your extremities to some visual stimulus, okay? Which in this case is you seeing the car coming towards you, right? These inferior colliculi are doing something similar, but it's more for auditory stimuli, right? So let's say the same thing, right? You're walking across the street, you're not paying attention, you didn't have the right of way, and instead of seeing the car starts to honk its horn, right? Right before it hits you, right? It starts to honk its horn. And what do? Maybe the same thing. You are startled by the horn, you turn your head, you turn your neck, you turn your eyes, you hold up your hands right before you get run over. And these inferior colliculi are helping to mediate and coordinate all that information. So sensory information coming into the brain is relayed to nuclei and neurons in these colliculi. It's synapses. And then from these colliculi, you have other motor neurons, motor signals that extend out to muscles of the head and neck and the eyes and the extremities and things like that, right? To help to mediate those movements, right? Now, you can take a less extreme example, and maybe say, so instead of the car honking its horn before it hits you, maybe it's you are walking across campus and somebody yells your name, right? Or you hear your name called. And what do? You turn and you try to find the location of the person who's yelling your name, right? And so that's largely what these colliculi are are doing here. Okay, so again, collectively, corpora quadragemina, individually, colliculi. To superior colliculi, to inferior colliculi. All right, so we will stop there, and we'll pick up in our next video, and we'll begin talking about perhaps some of our cranial nerves.